What is up, sports fans? What is up, Seattle Mariners fans? Welcome back into episode 28 of Bleav In Mariners. And what a week it has been. Apologize for the time off, but had my honeymoon, celebrated with the wifey in Hawaii. So very, very happy to be back. Very tan and excited to be back. And goodness gracious, a lot has happened since I've been gone. I don't want to go over too much in the last 2 weeks, more so just reacting to the last weekend. And then the Mariners going 5-1 against both the Texas Rangers and Houston Astros in the last two series and getting their first two series wins of the season. Pretty huge. But man, what a journey it was from just a week ago. I'll say, from my personal experience, I had to turn the Mariners off for a couple of days because, like I said, I was on my honeymoon and I watched Victor Robles dislocate his shoulder on that amazing catch against the San Francisco Giants when the Mariners were down in the Bay during that series. I literally watched that in a swim-up bar in Hawaii, and I got to say, it put a little bit of a damper on my trip. I mean, I know that he's going to be back this season. It seems they said 6 weeks of injury recovery time and then 6 weeks of rehab since he doesn't need surgery. Hopefully it stays that way. So we're looking, 12 weeks from now? It's April 14th as I tape this. So May, June, July. So 3 months total. So he'll be back right around the All-Star break, right? So Victor Robles, okay. I mean, I can live with that. But then literally in that same stretch of time, seeing Ryan Bliss go down with a torn bicep, losing him for the entire season, kind of throwing the infield into a little bit of a flux for the time being. But thankfully, guys have stepped up like Miles Mastrobuoni, kind of making my preseason prediction of him look totally wrong. He is hitting his booty off, hitting the cover off the ball, and no torpedo bat needed for him. Mastrobuoni looking good. He's been getting a lot of the starts at third base, but we will get to the new third baseman here for the Mariners very, very shortly. Ben Williamson called up in the last 24 hours for Seattle. Excited to see him and what he can do and see if he's going to stick at third base or maybe move to shortstop. We'll talk a little bit about that in this episode of Bleav In Mariners, and we'll also get into the Mariners bringing up Troy Taylor, getting him back from injury, and hopefully soon to get Matt Brash back from injury as well. So some pretty big additions to the roster in the last couple of days to combat, some of the crappy stuff that had happened in the last week or so. We'll get into all that. And just happy to be back in the seat hosting Bleav In Mariners. But yeah, I did. Like I said, man, that Victor Robles injury, I had to turn the Mariners off for a couple of days. It's like, no, I'm going to enjoy my honeymoon. And thankfully, right after I got back from the honeymoon, some success to lean into. The Mariners getting that win with Randy Arozarena's grand slam. And, of course, the walk-off walk in that game against the Astros as well. And then sweeping the freaking Texas Rangers to get back to 500. So like I said, welcome on in to episode 28 of Bleav In Mariners. I'm Schultz. If you did not know, Jordon Schultz, a Pacific Northwest talk show host based out of Portland, Oregon. Work on 1080 The Fan normally, but love to do this Mariners podcast for Bleav. Excited because we actually have some success to talk about. So we'll kind of react to the recent stretch, not really the 5-1 against the Astros, but more so just the last three wins, 3-0 against the Texas Rangers that the Mariners have had. And showing up with the bat, Cal Raleigh really does seem to have some success with the torpedo bat. We'll also get into the additions of Troy Taylor and Ben Williamson to end the podcast. But goodness gracious, y'all. I mean, thankfully, we have something to talk about as compared to about a week ago. It's been a Jekyll and Hyde season to start. I mean, we're literally not a month in, and we're already feeling it as Mariners fans, just up and freaking down. I feel like, before I left for my honeymoon, there was kind of something maybe okay to root for, maybe okay to get excited about, but the Mariners' batting averages are still crappy. But hey, they're getting a couple of wins. Jorge Polanco, not a crappy batting average. He's been hitting the cover off the ball as well, hitting his booty off and leading the Mariners, even while not able to play the field. While that does, kind of make it really hard for Dan Wilson to actually get a consistent lineup out there. That's opened up a chance for guys like Rowdy Tellez, who obviously has struggled early on, but seems to be after this series kind of turning it around a little bit. We'll get into that in just a second, kind of reacting to some of those big hits over the weekend and the box scores. But the Mariners now only a game and a half out of first place in the AL West. And I'll tell you what, I was just lamenting about couple of days ago, or excuse me, a couple of days before the Astros series started, saying, you know what? The Mariners 3.5, 4 games freaking down in the AL West already. What, just 2.5, 3 weeks into the season? That is a horrible place to be. But they did exactly what they needed to do. And it's nice when those winning streaks come against your division rivals, especially the division rivals that are leading your division. So this time it worked out for Seattle. They played their best ball of the season so far at the perfect time, and now are just a game behind Texas in the standings. They're still in third place, though, shockingly. If y'all didn't know this, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim in California next to Disneyland actually are leading the AL West right now with a 9-6 record. So, I mean, take that where you will. I'm not sure that a couple of weeks into this season is going to define how the rest of the year is going to go for the AL West, but it would be pretty shocking to me if it's just seriously, could you imagine if it was the Angels, the freaking Angels that won the AL West and got that guaranteed spot to the playoffs, or were fighting for a wild card spot? They're the freaking laughing stock, even beyond the Athletics. They're the freaking laughing stock of the division. So I'm not sure I could palate that, but take of that what you will. The Angels are leading the AL West right now. The Mariners a game and a half behind them. And on and off days, I tape this episode 28 of Bleav in Mariners before they head to Cincinnati to take on the new look Reds under Tito Francona. All right, so what a series that they had against the Texas Rangers. Like I said, playing their best ball at the best time, coming in, facing the top team at the time in the AL West, the Texas Rangers. And the Mariners were in fourth place themselves. Essentially, they did everything they needed to do. Brad Miller, and this was despite some early game struggles for every single starting pitcher, but Brad Miller was able to dig himself out of the hole in the first inning in that Friday game. Brian Wu was able to dig himself out of a hole in that Saturday game in the first inning. Bases loaded. Rangers weren't able to get anything. And then on Sunday, Logan Gilbert, who had an amazing game strikeouts-wise, moved on his way up the list of Mariners' all-time strikeout leaders. Hopefully, they can get that deal done with Logan Gilbert because, as he said, he wants to throw to Cal Raleigh his entire career, and they need him, and they need to get him signed now. He's probably going to be worth $40 million on the open market, so getting that done sooner rather than later, it is essential. Logan Gilbert, though, showing up on Sunday and really pitching through, just like the other two starters over the weekend. A pretty tough first inning, and the Rangers able to get some guys on, and maybe that was their game plan. Maybe they were really fighting hard because the Mariners starting pitchers are so good to get guys on early on to try to get the Mariners early, because usually, as you saw, the Seattle Mariners starting pitchers, one of the best rotations still in the league, as you saw them perform over the weekend, they settle in. They just get comfortable. And Bryce Miller has that bevy of his arsenal, 6-7 different pitches that he can go to. And I know that he hasn't been consistent this season, and I don't really like to use the word consistent usually because that just means you've been bad. But he has actually been decent at times. And you saw that on Friday. He was able to get some key strikeouts and the movement on some of his pitches is just so fun watching him pitch and able to hand it off to the bullpen. I know some people didn't like necessarily going to Trent Thornton first, but then, hey, if you don't go to Trent Thornton, you're probably going to like a Gabe Spire, right? And who did Dan Wilson go to after Trent Thornton? He went to Gabe Spire in that game. And thankfully, it's just kind of the middle innings that have been a question with so many pitching injuries in the bullpen. And, of course, George Kirby kind of setting things off, unfortunately, not on the right track, leaving the Mariners starter short to start the season. And they really haven't been able to find an answer with giving a couple of starts to Luis F. Castillo, to Pebble, and then giving that one start to Emerson Hancock. But they have been able to shore it up late in games with Andres Munoz. He's actually had his best start to the season so far of his career. Ben, I believe 6 out of the 8 wins that the Mariners have, he has had a save in, and he hasn't given up a run yet. So obviously that's not going to continue. We're going to see, and that's kind of why people were frustrated with, say, like Trent Thornton on Friday because, well, he gives up a home run. The game, all of a sudden, it was a lead for the Mariners. Now, all of a sudden, it's tied, and thank God for Cal Raleigh's late inning heroics and really all of his heroics all weekend with that torpedo bat to hit that home run to guarantee the Mariners win on Friday 5-3 over the Rangers. But it's going to happen. All right. These are relievers that have been depended on more so than any other staff in baseball. These starters and relievers, frankly, I mean, more so the relievers than the starters, but the relievers, as good as they've been, I've said this a couple of times on the podcast, they've kind of been built on a house of cards with the way the Mariners go and grab guys off the scrap heap, go and find reclamation projects, all of a sudden get them in the lab. They have some success, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have success for like 4 or 5 years. That could mean 2 seasons of success, half a season of success, a month of success. And one thing I will give Scott Service credit for, I will give Jerry DiPoto credit for, and the rest of the Mariners organization has that their talent at using those guys when they see that they're ready, to throw in big league games and they're actually doing exactly what they were coached to do. Pete Woodworth finding that little tick to change either in delivery or just does something to add a little bit to, a little bit more movement to a pitch or a little bit more speed to something. And they get the best out of them that they can in a Mariner uniform before jettisoning them. And then you see they've had success. Like Paul Sewald had success with the Diamondbacks, but there's been other guys that just don't really go on to have as much success. And like Justin Topa's had some success. Eric Swanson's had some success, but I'm talking about maybe the lesser guys. And we probably can't think of them because they just kind of faded off into obscurity. I don't know, maybe a guy, I think Matt Festa, I think he was with the Rangers as a spring training invitee and then made the roster to start the season. That might be a good example of somebody that the Mariners got the best out of before he kind of moved on, and they weren't necessarily seeing the best out of him on any other team after that. So the Mariners have been really good at doing that. And that's definitely something that they've done for 2, 3, 4+ seasons now. And at some point, you really can't lean as much on those guys. You've got to see the hitters start to produce. You've got to see hitters make it easier for pitchers, because starting pitchers having to shoulder a load trying to get a win when it's 2-1, when it's 2-0 every single game, that wears on you. And that's kind of the reason why, or at least one of the many reasons why Mariners fans have been clamoring for some freaking offense and for some freaking protection in the lineup for Mariners hitters like Julio Rodriguez and like Cal Raleigh for so long. All right, I know I went a little bit about the bullpen, but honestly, after Friday, people had some questions about the bullpen. They were nails the rest of the way. Obviously, Santos did give up a late game run on Saturday against the Rangers, but honestly, don't really care about that. He's been successful in most of his, if not all of his appearances. And once again, guys, you're not going to see relievers give up 0 runs every freaking time out. They're going to give up a home run. We got, a pretty great game after Logan Gilbert pitched 5 solid innings. Spire, Vargas, Thornton, and then Munoz to come in and wrap it up with the save on Sunday. That's how you want it, but it's not going to be that way every single game out. And that's what I'm saying. Like, hitters got to produce. Hitters got to do their job. And thankfully, over the weekend, they absolutely did. We talked a little bit about that Friday game, but Jorge Polanco still hitting out. Didn't have any hits on Saturday, but had another hit on Sunday, hitting .378 so far. Julio Rodriguez, he hit the cover off the ball over the weekend. Saturday and Sunday combined for 4 hits. And it's just nice to see Julio hitting the ball to the other side of the field, like getting his bat on the ball and then just seeing the ball kind of naturally drift off to right field, because that's where he got his bat on the ball. Just not trying to do too much, but using what the pitcher gives him. Also hitting another really nice single right up the middle. When you see guys doing that, when they're able to hit to all fields, when they're able to hit the ball right up the middle, they're getting the bat on the ball when they want to, and they're getting a lot of control with the bat, and they actually feel good at the plate. I think you've heard hitters talking, especially Mariners hitters talking about not really feeling in control at times at the plate, and whether that be because of the circumstances at T-Mobile Park or, not necessarily enough protection in the lineup for the best hitters like Cal, like Julio, or just the fact that they're slumping and they're not hitting to the best of their ability, whatever that is. Thankfully, we're seeing Julio actually look like an all-star hitter when he does that kind of stuff, look like a professional hitter, had an RBI as well, and rose his freaking average to over 200 in just a weekend. So now hitting 210, so we can stop talking about Julio hitting below the Mendoza line. I know Mitch Garver, nice pinch hit single for him on Sunday as well, coming in because Polanco cannot hit right now from the right side because of that strained oblique or that strained abdomen. Sucks that he's dealing with basically 2 injuries now, after he was supposed to be coming in as like the healthiest he's ever been in his career. But thankfully, he's still able to produce at the plate. And Jorge responsible for like 2 of the Mariners' 8 wins just by himself so far. So yeah, he can't play in the field. He's making it a little hard for Dan Wilson roster-wise. They have to use a little bit more of that versatility maybe earlier in the season than they thought that they were going to. But still nice to see him leading the charge on the offensive side of the ball. Also nice to see Rowdy Tellez getting in on the action, actually hitting a double. Tried to leg it out for a triple on Sunday, but was able to get that nice double and hit a big home run on Friday as well to extend the Mariners' lead. Nice to actually see his bat working. His defense showed over the weekend. And you think, you know what, if Luke Raley has to be pushed out to right field because of the absence of Victor Robles right now, that the Mariners will be okay at first base if Rowdy can continue to perform like that. The infield kind of having to be shuffled around, and that does include, unfortunately, taking Raley off the first base spot, but you're going to give him normal at-bats regardless. In fact, I unfortunately think even with the versatility of this roster now, that the Mariners don't have Mitch Haniger, now that you're obviously down Ryan Bliss, you're obviously down Victor Robles for a significant amount of time, you're going to have to give Luke Raley at-bats against lefties, even though that's not necessarily what the plan was coming into the season. But you're kind of running out of guys. And thankfully, they sent Dominic Canzone back down, and I think that's somebody that would get at-bats against lefties, but I don't want to see that. He's 27 years old. He's shown flashes in the major leagues, but I don't think he's a true major league hitter. Probably what would you call like a 4A hitter, like he succeeds when he's in AAA, but just doesn't quite have it in the majors. And the Mariners, frankly, don't have time to give guys like that at-bats in 2025. And that's kind of something we'll talk about here in just a minute, because the Mariners did send Dominic Canzone back down to Tacoma when they brought up Ben Williamson over the weekend. And thank goodness they did. Leo Rivas getting some at-bats. He getting a stolen base or 2 as well. The Mariners continuing to steal bases. I think they're like second or third in the majors. That's been a big part of their offense. I hope that continues to be a big part of their offense. But just a lot of positives, guys. So excited. I'm coming in here and reacting to good things. And it's kind of a change. Like I said at the start of the episode, it's usually been like a Jekyll and Hyde. It's been like, oh, something that you can kind of get excited about, but then something brings you right back down. Not this time. Not this weekend. The Mariners now almost in first place in the AL West, just a game and a half out behind the Angels. And that's a team that I would bet the house that I don't own that they will not be leading the AL West after 162 games. So we'll see what the Mariners can do moving on to Cincinnati. It's going to be Luis Castillo against, I believe his name is Nick Lodolo. Yeah, Nick Lodolo, a 27-year-old pitcher for the Reds. Been around for a few seasons now. Actually had one successful season in his rookie year, but since then, not as good. Started this year off, though, amazing. Just an 0.96 ERA through 3 starts. And let's see, how many Ks does he have? See if I can find that number. Strikeouts. He already has 8 strikeouts so far, so he's not a strikeout pitcher. We'll see if the Mariners can get going on him. And the new-look Cincinnati Reds under Tito Francona with The Rock headed to Cincinnati. All right, a couple of new guys, though, on the roster as they head to Cincinnati to talk about. Very excited that they've gotten Troy Taylor back. We'll start with him. The Mariners have been desperately they've been doing this a lot, unfortunately, since they lost George Kirby in spring training, but basically kind of playing shuffle or juggling with the different arms of the rotation and playing shuffleboard with different arms of the rotation different arms in the bullpen, because they, with guys getting knocked out early, like Emerson Hancock, like Luis F. Castillo having to come in and take the reins for those spot starts that George Kirby has missed. It is 3 so far that he hasn't been in. That has taxed the bullpen a little bit more, making the Mariners' need for Troy Taylor that much bigger. But thankfully, Monday morning, reinstated from the injured list. And this is, of course, after he came up last season as a major league debut kid, struck out 25 hitters in 19 innings, 3.72 ERA, 1 save. throws his fastball at almost 97 miles an hour, had batters to a 188 batting average, and posted a 44% whiff rate with his sweeper. So he's got off-speed stuff. He's got that high-octane fastball. He's that major league reliever. You saw it as soon as he came on the Mariners roster, and they need him more than ever right now. You kind of wonder, looking at their depth chart a little bit. Bizzardo's gotten better, so I would assume here, I mean, honestly, Bizzardo, he's got a pretty good fastball and a devastating slider when it's on. So even if he has a couple of bad appearances, I would say that Seattle's probably going to lean towards him more often than not, just because of the stuff that he has. They'll put up with a couple of bad performances. But recently, to get Troy Taylor on the roster, the Mariners did have Casey Lawrence pitching for the team. A couple of decent appearances, one really bad appearance. He was designated for assignment to get Troy Taylor some room on the roster to get him back into the major league clubhouse. Thank God they are not leaning on guys like Casey Lawrence anymore, with Troy Taylor coming back and then with Matt Brash coming back soon. You wonder, I think, looking at the other options to get rid of in the bullpen, essentially, I think you're looking at Casey Legumina, who just came up. The Gonzaga Bulldog product hasn't really had success in the majors. Maybe the Mariners can get him in their pitching lab and they like what they see, but I don't think he's going to be on the roster long. It's basically that or Gregory Santos. I don't know if Colin Snyder still has options or not. He's kind of quietly had not so great of a start to the season, but I think the Mariners are going to lean on him heavily. They've done so the last couple of seasons, and he's showed that he can handle that. And, you know, an early bad start to the season in just a couple of appearances, I think, because these guys are forced into action more than they should be early in the season. I don't think you can put that on them too much. So, yeah, keep Colin Snyder, keep Santos. He's still got like a 2.7 ERA, and I think Legumina is going to be the guy that's going to be off the roster here once Matt Brash gets back very soon. It would be nice in Cincinnati to see the Mariners bullpen fully fortified once again, with Andres Munoz starting the best season of his career. All right. Now, after the Mariners bullpen shored up, thankfully, we also got some news over the weekend that the Mariners infield might be shored up. They've been putting Leo Rivas out there next to J.P. Crawford. They've been putting Dylan Moore out there, which we expected, but we need to see him moving around. We can't just see him kind of locked in at one position. The Mariners aren't the best when he's like that. We've been seeing Miles Mastrobuoni in at third base and actually getting some hits the last couple of games as well, but once again, not necessarily a long-term option, and maybe this is the long-term option. The Seattle Mariners on Sunday calling up their number 13 prospect, Ben Williamson. We did a whole episode on Ben Williamson earlier in spring training on Bleav In Mariners. Really excited to see him, see what he can do on the Mariners roster, since they're so freaking shorthanded right now. And essentially, I think, and Ben Williamson, by the way, started the season in Tacoma. He hit 281 with a 650 OPS, 3 doubles, 8 RBIs, 6 runs scored, and 2 stolen bases in 14 games. So continue that success that we saw in spring training from him into the minor league regular season. Could profile as a shortstop as well, but overall is the best defender in the Mariners minor league system. And they are stoked. Dan Wilson said, manager said that they're excited. This is a quote from MLB.com about where we're at and getting ready to take him on that road trip. It is a pretty good time to get this addition because, like I said, you've been throwing utility guys out there in the infield, and after seeing him, I think the Mariners gave him the longest look out of anybody at third base in spring training. Yeah, it says right here, he logged more innings at third in spring than any other player, 55 innings total. But Ben Williamson is now a Seattle Mariner, and when Jorge Polanco comes back to the field, maybe the presence of Ben Williamson allows Jorge Polanco to shift back to second. At this point, he's a full-time DH. And actually, I don't know if that's the best plan to have him shift to second, because then you don't have a full-time DH. I don't know what you do at this point. You just give the second base at bats to a mix of Dylan Moore and Miles Mastrobuoni. Thankfully, they did send Dominic Canzone back down to AAA with this move. They had only given Canzone 3 at bats in the last few games, just 1 appearance with the Mariners in 1 game. Obvious that they don't think that he's a part of their long-term plans. But then they also got Leo Rivas sitting there as well. Maybe they can give him some at-bats at second base. But reports that the Mariners are trolling the market for maybe some undervalued infielders as well. We'll see if they actually bring anyone in. We know we know that they like to spend a lot of money. All right, but I don't want to go too negative here. Ben Williamson, a Seattle Mariner. I'm assuming we're going to see him make his debut starting at third base against the Cincinnati Reds on Tuesday. And that is going to do it for this episode of Bleav in Mariners. A lot of great things happening for the team in the last week. Excited that this has been a mostly positive episode. So nice to see them getting back into the conversation in the AL West so quickly. And hopefully we'll see Matt Brash here along with Troy Taylor in Seattle to shore up that bullpen. And man, wouldn't it just be great if you found out the Mariners traded for a second baseman? What a gift that would be. We can only hope. We can only hope. Appreciate everybody listening out there to this episode of Bleav in Mariners. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube, you like and you subscribe to this channel, Bleav in Mariners on YouTube, as well as leave a comment. Any questions that you have about anything that we talked about or anything you want addressed on the podcast. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star rating, leave a comment. It helps us tremendously when you do. We'll be back soon. Couple of days, actually. Make sure you tune in. Thanks to every Mariners fan listening. Keep those tridents up, Emps fans. See you soon.